Hello friends, I welcome you all to another edition of Daily News Analysis. So in this particular edition, we are going to discuss some very interesting articles. The first one being Trump's speech at UNGA and parallelly India-US talks. Important updates from the perspective of say GS2 international relations. Apart from that, from the perspective of schemes and policies in news, most of the times Trumpian hints in that particular speech are important. Another important articles is about India-China border infrastructure push. So in recent times, we have seen the renewed infrastructure push by India in the Northeast. So important analysis again from the perspective of GS2 international relations. Apart from that, in GS3 internal security also important. Third important article that we are going to discuss is about India's tea sector growth and its potential. So in another important analysis from the perspective of GS3, particularly agriculture and economy part. Another important article is about lessons from India's vaccination drive and policy. So, universal immunization program, the big success of India and what sort of lessons the world can take from that particular, vaccination drive in the wake of say vaccine hesitancy which is growing all over the world nowadays. Important analysis from the perspective of GS2 health. Particularly in the decoded section, we are going to take a look at H1B fee and Asian opportunity. So, despite the H1B fee in recent times by the US administration, what sort of opportunity does this particular immigration overhaul presents for India, whether India will become or will create Asian Silicon Valley? Important analysis again from the perspective of GS2 international relations. Apart from that, in GS3 economy part also this article will help. So, stay tuned. So, the first article that we are going to discuss is about Trump at UNGA and parallelly US-India talks. So, what Trump has said now is India-China primary funders of Russian war. That's what the statement of Trump is at UNGA's assembly in recent times. And parallelly at the same time, there is Jaishankar Rubio meeting happened or rather happening at the same time. So, important updates from the perspective of GS2, India-US relation in particular. So, let's look at some of the highlights of the Trump's speech. So, taking his oft repeated allegations against India to the floor of the UN General Assembly, the US President said and accused India and China of being primary funders of the Russian war in Ukraine. Parallelly, he claimed again that he stopped India-Pakistan conflict in recent times in May, and he said he was prepared to impose very strong tariffs that would end the purchase of Russian oil, but wanted European countries to join the effort as well. So, he parallelly also criticized NATO countries for doing the same as he criticized India and China. That is essentially, purchasing the Russian crude oil. He said that many NATO countries continue to purchase Russian energy, including gas. It was his first address to the UNGA in his obviously the second term in office. He said that if Russia was not ready to strike a peace deal, Washington was fully prepared to impose a very strong round of powerful tariffs which would stop the bloodshed, I believe, very quickly. So, that's what the bombastic style of Trump is all about. Trump urged European nations to join the US in such measures for them to be effective. Turning to global conflicts, Trump said he had ended 7 wars in recent times after returning to the office. So, what are these 7 wars? Again, from the perspective of prelims, each and every war's history and some of the background is very, very important. What are the underlying reasons for those particular wars? So, Trump claims that he has ended Israel-Iran war in recent times. Apart from that, obviously he claims Pakistan and India's ceasefire is because of him. Another important war that he claims to have ended is Rwanda and Democratic Republic of Congo. There is another Thailand and Cambodia's war as well, Armenia and Azerbaijan again, Egypt and Ethiopia as well, and apart from that Serbia and Kosovo. So, all of these countries are important from the perspective of places in news, apart from that mapping part as well. So, go through these 2 aspects. Apart from that, as I earlier said, what are the underlying reasons for these particular wars and to what extent the ceasefire has held in those particular conflicts important. No other president has ever done anything close to that. That's what the statement of Trump is by claiming that he ended the 7 wars. So, essentially a sort of his desire is to get the Nobel Prize, the coveted Nobel Peace Prize in particular. So we are going to say whether he, receives that particular Nobel Peace Prize or not. But at the same time, in Trump's speech, there was heavy criticism of United Nations itself. At the UNGA assembly, Trump returned to criticize the UN as ineffective institutions, claiming it fails to resolve global conflicts with just empty words. While acknowledging the organization's potential, he argued it has not lived up to its potential. His remarks reflected a continuation of his administration's skepticism towards multilateral institutions and diminished US role at the UN during his presidency. So he is assailing the multilateralism essentially. So he is promising the future in which US superpower or US hegemony persists. In speech marked by contradictions, Trump portrayed himself as a global peacemaker while simultaneously defending aggressive military actions at the same time. Particularly in recent times, we have seen his strikes on, say, the drug cartels in the Caribbean, claiming that these are, importing or rather exporting the drugs to the United States through the Venezuelan waters, including strikes on Iran and Venezuela targets. That's what, he said by the meaning of that defending aggressive military actions is. He touted his administration's foreign policy achievements but warned that globalism threatens national sovereignty and stability. So he is strongly critical of the globalization in short. His address, as expected, drew significant attention from the world leaders at the assembly. Although he exceeded his time limits and there was, sort of teleprompter related issues, particularly he complained about elevator issues at the UN building as well. So apart from that, Trump's approach to the UN signals a deeper shift in US foreign policy that is pretty much visible, a retreat from the multilateralism towards US-led unilateralism. International cooperation, he said, was acceptable, but never at the cost of national decision making or prosperity. That's what the MAGA agenda is all about, make America great again. In Trump's worldview, there is no room for the supranationalism that enthralled liberals after the Cold War. He is a strong critic of, say, liberal world order post the Cold War. Trump's emphasis on sovereignty and his critique of intrusive liberal internationalism resonated with many in developing countries, including India, but his 2017 speech also heralded a string of withdrawals and funding threats at that point of time. Particularly, Trump's speech in his first term was, ridiculed by the world leaders at that point of time, but this time the world leaders listened attentively. In the second term, Trump has doubled down, returning disruption into comprehensive policy. Obviously, he has, trained his guns when it comes to efficacy or efficiency of UN. Since January 2025 particularly, his agenda has been executed at a remarkable speed. Very true. Washington has again withdrawn from WHO, UNESCO. That is true. WHO and UNESCO he has withdrawn already. We have covered those news in our DNA episodes as well. Apart from that, he has also withdrawn US from Human Rights Council as well. Funding to the UN Relief and Work Agency for Palestine refugees has been seized. US support for the Paris Agreement and the new Climate Loss and Damage Fund particularly has been halted as well. So he has withdrawn US from Paris Climate Agreement. Apart from that, he hasn't, talked about anything when it comes to Climate Loss and Damage Fund. So this particular fund, at which particular COP was this particular fund was established, important from the perspective of prelims. Just comment your answer in the comment section to that particular question. There has been an unprecedented cut of more than 80% in US contributions to UN operations particularly, including peacekeeping and global health. That is pretty much true. To a certain extent, that is the job of, DOGE, headed by the Elon Musk at that point of time. So another important, thing or rather point in Trump's speech is his attack on the climate change itself, the overall, politics or rather overall scenario when it comes to climate change. He is questioning the basis for the climate change predictions itself. Climate change is the greatest con job. So that's what Trump says. So it is some sort of, misinformation and disinformation campaign that, global some global leaders are wedging that there is no such thing as climate change. US President said on Tuesday that climate change is the greatest con job. Mr. Trump called climate change a green energy scam Everybody is doing it because they want to be politically correct. The concept of carbon footprint is hoax. So that's what, he says, that the concept of carbon footprint is hoax. Although there are, very strong criticism when it comes to the concept of carbon footprint, but overall, we have been the biggest victims when it comes to climate change. So his, assertion that the climate change itself is the greatest con job is a tragedy. Carbon footprint. So let's look at the meaning of the carbon footprint just for the sake of clarity. A carbon footprint is a measure of the total amount of greenhouse gases released directly and indirectly by an individual, organization, event or a product. So that is carbon footprint. It measures the total amount of greenhouse gases released directly or indirectly. So it does not just measures carbon, it measures all the greenhouse gas emissions emitted by the particular individual or released by the particular individual or entity or organization or event or product, anything. While the term carbon is used, it typically includes all GHGs such as carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide in particular, N2O, with total amount expressed as a carbon dioxide equivalents. This allows for a standardized comparison for the global impact of different activities. He also criticized 1982 warning of UNEP particularly, who had predicted climate change would cause an irreversible global catastrophe by 2000. Trump said those forecasts were wrong and made by stupid people whose policies have cost nations vast fortunes. So particularly this is very scathing criticism of overall, climate change science itself. So particularly to what extent it will have the impact when it comes to climate mitigation, we are going to see in the upcoming times. At the same time, his pronunciation about biological weapons is also important to know. Biological weapons are devices or agents used to intentionally spread diseases among people, animals, plants. They use pathogens like bacteria, viruses or fungi or toxins derived from living organisms to kill or incapacitate. Unlike conventional weapons, biological weapons can be invisible, hard to detect and cause widespread epidemics or pandemics as well. So particularly when it comes to biological weapons, he actually has advocated for the new Biological Weapons Convention, and he strongly advised against having the biological weapons by many countries. Biological warfare is banned under 1972 Biological Weapons Convention. So there is 1972 Biological Weapons Convention. Particularly India has signed and ratified that particular convention in 1974 itself, although that treaty came into existence or came into work in 1975 particularly. So let's look at some basics of biology. As I already told you about the meaning of the biological weapons, another important thing is types of biological weapons. There are multiple types based on types of agent that is used in the biological weapon itself. There is first and foremost bacterial agents, use bacteria to cause diseases. For example, there is a very famous case of anthrax. Plague is also considered as a biological weapon. Anthrax is caused by bacteria called Bacillus anthracis. Remember these names. Plague obviously is caused by Yersinia pestis, that is a bacterial species. Tularemia Francisella tularensis, that is the name of the bacteria which causes tularemia outbreaks. Bacteria can often be treated with antibiotics if detected early. Although anthrax spreads very fast. So to certain extent, antibiotics, if not given on time, the anthrax spread and the death potential of anthrax is huge. We have seen a very huge impact when it comes to biological weapons. There is another important threat is viral agents. Use viruses which are smaller than bacteria and often harder to treat. There is smallpox, which is caused by variola virus. Ebola and Marburg virus are also sort of can be used as biological weapons. Hemorrhagic fevers, Venezuelan equine encephalitis. Vaccines may also prevent some viral infection, but treatment is often limited. Toxins, use poisonous substances produced by living organisms, not living organisms themselves. For example, there is botulinum toxin from Clostridium botulinum, extremely deadly toxin by the way. Ricin is very famous in that regard from castor beans particularly, and there is staphylococcal enterotoxin B, that is SEB. Toxins act quickly and are difficult to detect. Ricin is often used by agents, particularly assassins, Fungal agents are also, although they are less common, but can be used as a biological weapon. Some fungi can damage crops, food supplies and cause illness in humans or animals. There is rye ergot fungi, there is crop pathogens like rice blast fungus as well. GM crops or GM enhanced agents can also be used as a biological weapon, can involve CRISPR or synthetic biology techniques. The high concerns due to potential bioterrorism or accidental release as well. So, sort of, the Trump's proclamation of leading the effort to ban the biological weapons is the good rather, initiative. Biological Weapons Convention, let's look at some of the basics of Biological Weapons Convention in that regard, which is, of 1972. India signed the BWC in 1973 and ratified in 1974. India is a state party to BWC. It is a disarmament treaty that prohibits the development, production and acquisition, transfer and stockpiling and use of biological and toxin weapons. So, key points, obviously it is opened for signature way back in 1972, entered into force in 1975. Currently, over 180 members countries are the members. It is a legally binding international treaty, remember that. So, BWC, Biological Weapons Convention, it is a legally binding international treaty. Main provisions, obviously it prohibits development, production, etc., etc. There are certain limitations as well. No formal verification system, reliance on voluntary declarations and mutual trust. Enforcement and enforcement mechanisms are pretty much weak under the convention. So, mutual trust is what is lacking today. So, that's why, there is need of, say, new convention to actually ban the biological weapons. So, Biological Weapons Convention, apart from that, what are some of the other protocols or conventions regarding biological weapons? There is Geneva Protocol of 1925, UNSC Resolution 1540 of 2004, and WHO and Australia group have also some provisions when it comes to biosecurity and biological weapons. So, just go through this particular chart here, important. Another important, analysis apart from, say, Trump's UNGA speech is India-US talks. So, talks on both sides looking at the window for Modi-Trump meeting in the upcoming times. So, India-US trade talks. So, India and US are working on finalizing stalled trade deal affected by US tariffs and India's purchase of Russian oil. So, US Secretary of State Marco Rubio called India crucial partner, emphasizing cooperation in trade, defense, energy, pharmaceuticals, critical minerals. High-level diplomatic meetings was also organized. Jaishankar met Rubio in New York during the UNGA session. This meeting was described as positive and candid, discussed all bilateral and global issues. Jaishankar also met Sergio Gore, the Trump administration's new nominee for US Ambassador to India. Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal is also attending US trade negotiations as well. Possible Modi-Trump bilateral meeting was also discussed on the sidelines of ASEAN and East Asia Summit, which will happen from October 26 to 28. So, there can be, a Modi-Trump meeting in that particular summit as well. So, we are going to see, what sort of outcome that particular meeting will have. But we are hopeful that India-US trade relations will get back on the track. So, East Asia Summit, let's look at, some of the basics when it comes to East Asia Summit, because that's what is mentioned in the article. The East Asia Summit is a regional forum held annually to discuss what political, security and economic issues at the Asia Pacific region. It includes mix of ASEAN countries and key global powers. So, by the way, India is not a member of East Asia Summit, remember that. There are total 18 members, by the way. There are 10 ASEAN member states. These are the core members of the East Asia Summit, that is Brunei Darussalam, Cambodia, Indonesia, Laos, Malaysia, Myanmar, Philippines, Singapore, Thailand and Vietnam. And then there are 8 dialogue partners, non-ASEAN members. So, these countries are major global or regional powers invited to promote strategic dialogue and cooperation. So, India is part of the dialogue partner for East Asia Summit, remember that. So, 10 ASEAN members are the core members of the East Asia Summit. You may get a question on the membership part. Core members are obviously 10 ASEAN countries and there are 8 dialogue members as well. Australia, China, India, Japan, New Zealand, Russia, South Korea and US. These are 8 dialogue partners of, say, East Asia Summit. Apart from that, when it comes to those India-US bilateral talks, there was India-EU engagement on the sidelines as well. Jaishankar held meetings with EU foreign ministers, signaling India's balanced diplomatic approach. EU is positioning itself as a reliable partner, contrasting with concerns about US unpredictability. There is Quad and Indo-Pacific related cooperation, which has been reaffirmed in that particular meeting of, say, Jaishankar and Rubio as well, which promoted free and open Indo-Pacific. That is often, the outcome of all these talks. So this is very important practice question for you. Another important practice question is on how many of the countries given above are member nations of the East Asia Summit. Particularly remember, it is talking about the core members, not the dialogue partners. Remember that. So I just wanted to clarify this particular question here. So just comment your answer in the comment section to that particular question. So the second important article that we are going to discuss is about India-China border issues, particularly in recent times. There is statement of Chinese envoy, don't let boundary dispute define ties. So that's the Chinese envoy statement. Apart from that, expert committee has given nod for 2200 megawatt Oju hydel project near China border. So there is push by the Indian government. India in particular is trying to push infrastructure project in the northeast, so that the internal security along the India-China border will not be an issue. So when it comes to the news itself, India-China ties has reached a new level of improvement after the recent meeting between Prime Minister Modi and President Xi Jinping in Tianjin in recent times. Chinese ambassador to India said he also said that the two countries should not let the boundary dispute define ties between the two. So there is a renewed energy when it comes to bilateral relationship between between India and China. As Modi met Xi Jinping at the SCO summit in China in recent times. India maintains that normal bilateral ties are not possible without peace and, say, tranquility, normalcy on the border. Still, India prioritizing the border issues to be resolved at the earliest. Some positives despite that is also important. Obviously, the positives of the recent meeting between the Modi and Xi Jinping. In 2025, 2.65 lakh visas were issued to Indian citizens by China. That is positive development. Kailash Mansarovar Yatra has resumed. 700 official and 20,000 private pilgrims participated this year. That is also some sort of positive people-to-people engagement between the two countries. India-China bilateral trade grew 10.4% year-on-year, reaching $102 billion between January and August 2025. So there is increase of bilateral trade between India and China as well. Although India suffers trade deficit when it comes to China, that is different thing altogether. Apart from that, Oju hydel project that recently got the green light from, say, the Environment Ministry is also important news here. An expert panel of the Union Environment Ministry has recommended environmental clearance for 2200 megawatt Oju hydroelectric project to be constructed on the Subansiri River in Taksing near the China border in Arunachal Pradesh. Remember that? Because China is itself is building huge dam on the that Brahmaputra river. So that will be the biggest dam on earth when built. So the Indian efforts, say, when it comes to preserving our security and sovereignty in northeast through infrastructure push is understandable. So this particular project, Oju hydel project, its location is 5 km downstream of Reddy village, Taksing block in Upper Subansiri district in Arunachal Pradesh. Obviously, it is developed by Oju Subansiri Hydropower Corporation Private Limited. Its main plant will have the capacity of 2100 megawatt of electricity, and dam tow plant will have 120 megawatt as well. So this is huge dam. Land use 750 hectares of forest land to be diverted, 43 hectares to be submerged as well. So this is the environmental cost of that particular project. Displacement, 9 families will be displaced. So the displacement is not that huge because Arunachal Pradesh itself has low density of population. Public hearing held in August 25 at Reddy village. So apart from that, there are other Subansiri basin projects. Oju is the uppermost and largest among several hydroelectric projects in the Subansiri basin. In particular, there is others like Niare, Naba, Nalo, Dengser, Upper Subansiri and Lower Subansiri. These are other basin projects, hydroelectric projects on the Subansiri as well. As I earlier said, there were environmental concerns. Particularly, the environmentalists from Assam raised concern that cumulative impact assessment and carrying capacity studies for the Subansiri basin were outdated, which were done way back in 2014. The expert appraisal committee, EAC, acknowledged the data was over 10 years old, but accepted the project proponent submissions after detailed discussions on hydrology and ecological flow data. Although the government is saying that they have done all the studies of say hydrology and ecological flow data, there are environmental concerns because that data itself is 10 years old. Glacial lake outburst flood risk is tremendous in that regard. GLOF, that is Glacial Lake Flood Assessment and Dam Break Analysis were conducted. The panel emphasized that designed flood estimation must include glacial lake outburst scenarios to ensure safety. Despite concerns over outdated environmental data, the ministry's EAC has given the green light to India's largest planned hydropower project in the Subansiri Basin. So, this will become the largest hydropower project on the Subansiri Basin. So, let us look at some basics of the Subansiri River now. So, the Subansiri River is a major tributary of the Brahmaputra River flowing through Tibet, China, Arunachal Pradesh and then Assam in India. It is important that ecologically and strategically this river is vital, especially due to its hydropower potential and location near India-China border. The name Subansiri itself is believed to be derived from Subarna, that is gold, and Siri means stream. So, it is often referred to as a golden river, possibly due to early reports of gold dust in its sand. So, that is why it is called a golden river. Remember these terminologies, you can get the question in prelims in that regard. So, this particular chart here is important, just go through this particular chart. It talks about say origin, length, mouth and where it originates. Particularly the origin is in Tibet, China, where it is known as Chayul Chu. So, that is the name of the Subansiri river in Tibet, China. Entry into India, obviously enter Arunachal Pradesh near Taksing in the Subansiri district. So, major tributaries are also important. There are Kamla, Kurung, Dikrong and Pinyor rivers. These are the major tributaries. Strategic importance, it is strategically located river as well. You can clearly see the Subansiri river here, Subansiri river. There is upper Subansiri as well. There is Kurung Kumi and you can see the lower Subansiri as well. So, it meets the Brahmaputra river in Assam. So, just the mapping is important here. Just remember the map as well. Apart from that, the article also talks about Northeast Infra push. So, the center has in recent times expedited approvals for infrastructure projects in the frontier districts of the Northeast. The Oju Hydel project is located close to the China border and will be the biggest of the Hydel projects planned in the Subansiri Basin. India is aggressively pushing infrastructure development in the Northeast due to its focus on enhancing say rail, road, air connectivity and digital connectivity as well. There are key initiatives like PM Divine Scheme, PM Gati Shakti National Master Plan. There are significant investments in highway constructions as well, railway expansion. In recent times, we have seen Bairabi Sairang railway line as well. A waterway development, digital services supported by increased budget allocations and various government schemes like any SIDS is there. So, railways, there are many Hydel projects now operational. There are road projects, there are airways, inland waterways, there are digital connectivity issues or rather initiatives undertaken so that the Northeast becomes a gateway to ASEAN through its say Act East policy. So, this is very important practice question for you, just comment your answer in the comment section. So, the third important article that we are going to discuss is about India's tea sector growth. There is huge scope for India's tea sector to grow. That is the statement of the Executive Director of the International Tea Committee, ITC. So, India has all the ingredients to become the superpower of the tea industry according to the Executive Director of the ITC, Mr. Pereira, who spoke recently at the India Trade Convention in Kochi, said that India was the second largest producer and consumer of the tea. Many tea lovers in India, obviously it is the second largest producer as well as the consumer of the tea after China and the third largest exporter as well. So, that is where the export potential is huge. Of the total tea output of 7.074 billion kilograms and consumption of 6.97 billion kilograms in the 2024, India produced 1.303 billion kilograms and consumed 1.22 billion kilograms, almost equal consumption. On exports, Kenya, which is the largest exporter of tea, ships almost the entire quantity it produces, and China, the second largest exporter, consumes locally a substantial volume of the tea it produces as well. Sri Lanka shipped 245 million kilogram worth almost $1.4 billion. So when it comes to Sri Lanka, it actually has, it actually gives Sri Lanka much more, say, dollars. However, India export 255 million kg worth almost $800 million. So they say compared to Sri Lanka, our exports are less. Hence, India should focus on the quality to get better realization and explore newer markets such as South America and Africa as well. The market itself is, very limited when it comes to Indian tea exports. Per capita consumption. So this data is also interesting to know here. On the domestic front, Indian consumers are increasingly willing to pay more for quality. While India's per capita consumption is 840 gram per year, Turkey's per capita consumption is of 3 kilograms. So there is, you can clearly see that there is almost a triple jump when it comes to consumption of tea in Turkey. So which is highest globally. If the Indian per capita consumption can touch even 1 kilogram, it will consume the entire quantity that it produces. So the scope is definitely there for the Indian tea sector to grow. So even if that per year consumption grows to say 1 kilogram, all the production itself will be consumed by the Indian market. So there is, that's why there is a huge scope for the growth of, say, Indian tea sector to grow. So let's look at tea production in India. Assam is the highest tea producing state in India, contributing over 50% of the country's total tea output and holding world's largest concentration of tea plantations as well. Its unique climate and fertile soil make it the tea capital of India. Apart from that, West Bengal, Tamil Nadu and Kerala are also leaders when it comes to tea production. Tea varieties in India, there is Assam tea, there is Darjeeling tea, there is Nilgiri tea as well, and Kangra tea is also famous. There is, you can look at some of the specificities here. Darjeeling tea has also a GI tag, so remember that. So apart from that, what are some of the ideal conditions for tea cultivation? Tea grows best in subtropical to tropical climates. Constant moist conditions support lush foliage development. Tea plants do not tolerate waterlogging. Remember that. Tea plants do not tolerate waterlogging. Mulching and shade trees are often used to maintain soil moisture and control erosion. Tea grows best on gentle to steep slopes where drainage is very much natural. High altitude teas are often more aromatic and of higher quality. That's why, Darjeeling tea, that particular tea commands so much price. Shade trees often planted in tea gardens to protect bushes from harsh sun and conserve moisture at the same time. Pruning cycle is also important. Manage to encourage new leaf growth. Obviously, the leaf are actually plucked. So the pruning cycle is important. So plucking generally happens done every 7 to 15 days. Only the top 2 leaves and a bud are harvested. Remember this particular specific here. Only the top 2 buds, top 2 leaves and a buds are harvested as a tree, as a tea itself. So climate conditions, ideal climate conditions, temperature 13 degrees Celsius to 30 degrees Celsius. Too high, too low may affect the leaf quality. Rainfall 150 to 300 centimeter per year, well distributed throughout the year. Humidity, high humidity is required, almost more than 70%, which favors leaf growth obviously. No frost, it damages the plants. And sunlight, moderate sunlight with cloud cover or mist is ideal, especially in hilly regions. So soil conditions, it is the best suited soil is loamy soil with good drainage. Soil pH should be slightly acidic. High organic matter is needed. Tree thrives in rich organic soils. Well drained red or yellow soil in hilly terrain also, is suitable for tea cultivation. So let's look at ITC now, International Tea Committee. So International Tea Committee is a global non-governmental organization, remember that serves as the primary source of reliable international tea statistics and promotes cooperation among tea producing and tea consuming countries. So it is sort of the international non-governmental organization. Let's look at some of the key facts when it comes to ITC. It was established way back in 1933. So it has huge history. It is headquartered in London, UK. So remember the headquarters as well, headquartered in London, UK. It is non-governmental industry-led organization. Tea producing and tea consuming countries and tea related organizations are its members. Primary function collecting, compiling and publishing global tea data. Okay. So these are those are the mandate that is the mandate of say ITC. Member countries, obviously they are selected through say tea producing countries and tea consuming countries. You can clearly see the member countries, but the exact member list may vary because it includes both and public and private stakeholders as well. So the member list is not that much important. Only important thing to know is tea producing countries and tea consuming countries. So these, for example, you can clearly see UK, the West particularly is a tea consuming country. Why? Because most of the West is in pretty much temperate zone, and that climate is not suitable for the tea cultivation. But on the other hand, you can see the tea producing countries, most of them are in say tropics and subtropics. So that's why that's where the cultivation of tree is high because of say the climate conditions. Why ITC matters for India? By the way, India is one of the founding and most prominent members of ITC. Indian tea boards and exporters use ITC data for marketing, planning, trade negotiations, etc. It helps position India in the global tea competitively as well. So in recent times, the social media has promoted matcha tea as well, and many of you must have drank that particular very expensive beverage as well. So it is sort of a very green sort of tea, which has say the origin in Japan, but it is originally in China, but was perfected and popularized by Japan, where it is an integral part of their traditional Japanese tea ceremonies. So it is part of say tea ceremonies. So matcha is a type of finely ground green tea powder made from specially grown and processed shade grown tea leaves. So it is also some sort of a tea which is grown in shade in specific Japanese regions. Obviously, its origin in China, particularly Tang dynasty, perfected in Japan. Zen monks in 12th century perfected that matcha tea type green tea powder, not steeped but consumed whole in water or milk. So essentially, it is not like that the processing is done through. So essentially, the processing is done through leaves are steamed, dried and ground into fine powder, and then that fine powder is mixed in the water or milk. Leaf variety made from tencha leaves, shade grown before forest, color vibrant, bright green. So that's what there is signature color of matcha. Taste profile, there is umami, grassy, slightly sweet and with creamy texture. So you must have, many of you must have actually drank that particular tea, matcha tea. Caffeine content higher than regular green tea, particularly. How matcha differs from say green tea? It's something interesting, you can go through it. Again, whether matcha is grown in India or not. Yes, matcha style green tea is now being produced in Assam, Nilgiris and Himachal Pradesh, though Japanese matcha remains the global standard in quality. Very true. So no sort of Indian matcha can actually match that particular Japanese matcha. But health benefits of matcha are huge. It is a good source of vitamins A, C, E and K, may support heart health as well. There are many metabolism boost, aids in fat burning as well. So particularly that's why it has become very famous. It helps in fat burning. So some sort of remedy when it comes to say obesity part. So this is very interesting practice question for you. Just comment your answer in the comment section. Another important article that we are going to discuss is about lessons from say India's vaccination drive. So in the wake of vaccine hesitancy, particularly in the US, India's success story of say Indian universal immunization program is very important. So it was launched way back in 1985. It is a nationwide public health initiative aimed at providing free vaccination to all children 0 to 6 years and pregnant women to protect them from preventable diseases. It is one of the largest immunization programs globally. Key efforts like Mission Indradhanush have been launched to increase coverage, especially among underserved population. Particularly Mission Indradhanush was launched just a decade back under that universal immunization program. This particular program has contributed significantly to eradicating polio and reducing IMR, that is infant mortality rates as well. Vaccination is one of the most effective and cost efficient public health measures, saving millions of lives. Very true. India's own universal immunization program is the largest in the world, annually vaccinating 2.6 crore infants and 2.9 crore pregnant women. So that's the extent of the success of say UIP. The program has significantly contributed to reducing under 5 mortality from say 45 to 31 per 1000 live births between 2014 and 2021. That is good improvement as per the sample registration system of say 2021. So, immunization has been a success story for India. The UIP provides free vaccine against 12 diseases and 11 vaccines are given nationwide, and one vaccine, particularly JE, that is Japanese encephalitis, is administered only in certain endemic regions. There are in total 12 vaccines which are administered under UIP. Remember that. In the last 10 years, 6 new vaccines were added to the program. Those are tetanus and adult diphtheria, that is TD, inactivated poliovirus, IPV, measles rubella was also added, rotavirus, and there is PCV, pneumococcal conjugate vaccine, and G. These are 6 vaccines that were added in the last 10 years out of these 12 11 vaccines that are launched, or 12 vaccines that are launched. In 2014, full immunization coverage in India was 62%, according to that particular data of NFHS4 at that point of time. To increase this to 90%, the government launched Mission Indradhanush in 2014. Later, intensified Mission Indradhanush, that is IMI, was introduced in 2017 to target low coverage and high risk areas more strategically as well. So, the intensified Mission Indradhanush was launched in 2017 to target low coverage and high risk areas more strategically. By 2023, a total 12 phases of MI and IMI were conducted, covering almost 6 crore children and 1.3 crore pregnant women. So, this is huge. These efforts were integrated into national operation or outreach campaigns such as Gram Swaraj Abhiyan, extended Gram Swaraj Abhiyan as well. Thanks to these interventions, full immunization coverage increased by 2024-25. However, challenges remain, especially in reaching remote, migratory and vaccine-hesitant populations. To address these gaps, the program is adopting innovative strategies like zero-dose outreach, digital tracking systems and innovative cold chain infrastructure as well. So, vaccine coverage in this regard, you can clearly see some of the important points here. For example, India has maintained its polio-free status since 2011. That is good. Lessons from India's polio program have been instrumental in strengthening both UIP and country's overall vaccine preventable disease surveillance program. Significant milestone under UIP include elimination of maternal and neonatal tetanus in 2015, yaws free status in 2016. These are very important achievements. You may get direct question on this in prelims, that India has achieved elimination of maternal and neonatal tetanus in 2015, yaws free status in 2016. Between 2017 and 2019, the government conducted large-scale MR, that is measles rubella catch-up campaign, vaccinating almost 34.8 crore children aged 9 months to 15 years and integrated rubella vaccine into the UIP. However, COVID-19 disrupted all this. To address this, government launched intensified Mission Indradhanush, as I earlier said, that is 5.0 in 23, targeting under 5 children across the country. Further strengthening efforts, the Zero Measles Rubella Elimination campaign was initiated in 2025 as well to raise awareness and drive up immunization drives. These initiatives aims to achieve over 95% MR coverage nationally and establish strong herd immunity to prevent future outbreaks. There is, huge tech integration into these efforts. For example, India has prioritized technological integration in immunization through initiatives like there is Pradhan Mantri Ayushman Bharat Health Infrastructure Mission and platforms such as UWIN platform. UWIN platform, you particularly must be knowing the CoWIN platform, particularly in COVID times. UWIN offers end-to-end digital tracking of vaccination of pregnant women and children up to 16 years, ensuring nationwide anytime anywhere access, especially for migratory populations. So, from the perspective of say migratory populations, this particular scheme or this particular platform offers help. Support systems include there is eWIN, Electronic Vaccine Intelligence Network for vaccine stock monitoring, there is National Cold Chain Management Information System, and there is SafeVac, that is for vaccine safety reporting. So, these are some of the tech integrations into the vaccination drives. This covered 97% of the population with one dose, 90% with doses, a major public health achievement. During COVID particularly, India emerged as a global leader in vaccine development and delivery, launching vaccination program in 2021, which covered, as I said, 97% of the population with one dose and 90% with both doses. So, that is huge. achievement itself. So that sort of may have created the herd immunity in Indian population against COVID-19. India relied domestic manufacturing capacity, relied on domestic manufacturing capacity. There is Atmanirbharta when it comes to vaccines. Public-private partnerships were also promoted. Today, India stands as the world's largest vaccine manufacturing hub and a key player in the future of global health through Make in India strategy as well. So, in conclusion, we can say that over the past decade, India's immunization achievements have been globally recognized, setting a model for other countries. On March 6, 2024, India received the Measles and Rubella Champion Award from Measles and Rubella Partnership as well. India has significantly expanded vaccine coverage through supply chains, through digital disease surveillance and public trust. For stronger pandemic and epidemic preparedness, the article stresses adopting One Health approach, which involves joint surveillance of human, animal and environmental health systems. So, One Health, the article advocates for One Health approach now, so that we can actually build on the vaccine success. This is a very important practice question for you. Just comment your answer in the comment section. Basic question on Mission Indradhanush. There is intensified Mission Indradhanush, which is in news all the time as well. So, in decoded section, we are going to take a look at article titled $1 lakh fee and Asian opportunity. So, this talks about the $100,000 fee that was recently announced by the H-1B visa on the H-1B visa by the US administration, and what will be its implication. And the article actually advocates for the Asian Silicon Valley to emerge. So, Trump's $1 lakh H-1B fee, it's time for an Asian Silicon Valley. So, the article advocates for Asian Silicon Valley. For perhaps the first time in decades, the economic mathematics may favor building technological capacities or capabilities closer to home. An Indian engineer working remotely for Google from Bengaluru finds her purchasing power nearly equal to colleagues in the US, with added benefits of being near to the family. So, there are very tremendous benefits when it comes to working in India itself, not going to the US on the H-1B visa. Similarly, Chinese workers benefit from local manufacturing and markets, while both avoid visa challenges faced by overseas peers, enabling them to build the future from home itself. Tightening immigration policies in the West, including recent H-1B visa fee, are pushing talent to stay local. Very true. Meanwhile, India's venture capital funding rose 43% in 2024 to almost $13.7 billion. So, that's the potential India possesses already, making it Asia Pacific's second largest VC club. This shift suggests a new opportunity, that is, South Asia could build a more integrated homegrown tech ecosystem led by its major economies. So, this is the venture capital funding, the amount that is created or invested in India is huge. So, that's why India itself can build or bring its own more integrated homegrown tech ecosystem now, which will challenge the Silicon Valley of US. So, there is global AI landscape, and India's position in this regard is important to know. The global AI race is reshaping tech leadership. China leading in AI patents, particularly holding about 70% of global AI patents. Can you imagine? Almost 70% of global AI patents are owned by China now, including over 38,000 generative AI patents from 2014 to 2023, compared to only 6,276 of US. Meanwhile, India has seen strong growth in AI investment as well, especially in generative AI funding in 2023, in indicating a shift towards more geographically distributed innovation hubs. So, India's technological strengths. What are India's technological strengths that it can harness to attract the talent that will flee that H-1B fee now? India's edge lies in its robust software service-based sector, large consumer market offering valuable data for AI training, existing digital infrastructure such as world's largest digital identity system, that is Aadhaar, that is very revolutionary, advanced payment platforms like UPI particularly. So, digital public infrastructure in that regard is very, very important. Despite limited regional cooperation, these assets give India solid foundation for tech leadership as well. So, policy opportunities for India. India has taken very key policy steps in that regard. Removal of angel tax in recent times, simplified foreign VC investor registration. These are very important and very good steps that India has taken when it comes to policies. Additional recommended interventions in that regard. So the article gives some additional recommendations like dedicated AI focused special economic zones for R&D and startup growth, fast track regulatory approvals for AI applications, for example, healthcare, autonomous vehicles, expansion of the PLI scheme to AI hardware to reduce import dependencies, incentive for returning diaspora tech experts, take tax benefits for international patent filings by Indian residents, and government-backed VC funds for deep tech solutions. So remember some of these, important solutions here. You can effectively utilize such important and effective solutions in your AI-related answers. What India can do better to attract AI talent, at the same time, how India can move forward when it comes to policies on, say, AI and its generative AI-related shifts. So, talent mobility and geopolitical shifts. Global visa restrictions are redirecting tech talent back to Asia. India's returning diaspora brings global networks, while global companies increasingly established operations in India, benefiting from the country's vast talent pool and improved policy environment. Already we have seen the policy environment being improved in recent times. There is South Asian tech cooperation, which will have potential, but at the same time it will present complexity. But it is pretty much possible that we will see in upcoming times the cooperation in South Asia in that regard. So there is economic merit in regional tech ecosystem, development of the regional tech ecosystem. For example, in India can act as a software and digital infrastructure hub, China a manufacturing capabilities hub, other South Asian nations emerging talents and markets. So other South Asian nations also will provide emerging talent and markets to this particular effort to establish the Asian Silicon Valley. There is, potential cooperation areas, for example, on climate modeling, traffic optimization, medical diagnostics in particular. But however, there are political tensions, especially India-China dispute is ongoing all the time. Along with security, regulatory and IP challenges make collaborations difficult but not impossible. So what can be the strategic approach when it comes to India? So India should pursue a dual strategy. What exactly is this dual strategy? First, independently strengthening its own tech capabilities, and second, exploring selective low-risk regional cooperations with a trust-building phased approach. So the EU model of gradual collaboration or cooperation is cited as an example here. Though South Asia's trajectory will be very unique. Why? Because obviously the cooperation in South Asia is very limited. Why? Because of, say, the India-China traditional rivalry. At the same time, India-Pakistan rivalry in that regard poses, security-related risk. That's why, the South Asian integration and collaboration and cooperation when it comes to AI is difficult to achieve. So, in conclusion, we can say that India stands at a pivotal moment to consolidate its position as a global tech leader. With strategic policies, digital infrastructure and global talent coming back, India can thrive whether through regional cooperation or independent innovations. So generally, we need to have our own strengths, particularly in independent innovation, and then there can be regional cooperations as well. Regardless of the prospects of regional cooperation, India must prioritize strengthening its own capabilities, with 23 Indian startups preparing for IPOs in 2025. Early 25, sustained growth in software and SaaS funding. The country's technological estimation or ecosystem is gaining strong momentum. By 2030, leadership in AI development will be a decisive factor shaping the global economy. India possesses the talent, increasingly supportive policies and expanding capital markets to claim a major role. So India will claim major role when it comes to AI leadership. The question is no longer whether India can build technological feature or future, but how swiftly it can unlock its potential. The opportunity is immense, but success will demand navigating both technological hurdles and intricate regional dynamics. In this landscape, economic pragmatism, not political rhetoric, must chart the course. So there is scope for, say, the regional cooperation in that regard in South Asia. So the article suggests when it comes to AI and technological, say, leadership, India should focus on the economic pragmatism rather than, say, false political narrative or rhetoric. So this is very interesting practice question for you. That's it from my side, and stay tuned for another edition of Daily News Analysis. Thank you.